Let's move down to the $6 to $7 million range. A lot of good assets there. We got Antonio, who had a really great post restart run there. We got Brewster, who a lot of people have an eye on. Might be loaned out somewhere to one of the lower teams, so that'd be big. We got Neil Maupay as well. Giroud's in that price range. A lot of people like Mitrovic as well, and Bamford's there too. So C4, why don't you let us know what you think about that £6 to £7 million range?
So in my head, I have it's basically Mitrovic or Che Adams or Chris Wood. Those are my three I'm considering. Antonio, I think West Ham kind of has a rough start to this season throughout their first 9 fixtures. Plus, with Sebastian Haller coming back, I think Haller could be a viable option in that price range depending on where Antonio ends up playing. But to me, I think there's a weird spot with two guys who don't fit into the, let's call it the 8.5 to 9.5 bracket, and don't really fit into like the 5.5 to 7 bracket, and that's Tammy Abraham and Charleston. I think Charleston playing up front and Tammy Abraham, if he does play, I think those are two like viable options, and I think they're worth putting that extra million in over any of those like 6.0 options. I think if Tammy Abraham's starting in that Chelsea lineup, he's a must-own. But again, so many pieces coming in that no one really knows how it's going to shake out. Pulisic doesn't start the season. Who even knows how that's going to shake out?
Yeah, I mean, especially with Havertz getting closer, apparently, it seems like Tammy might be the odd one out. But I guess that's something to keep an eye on because, yeah, he did really well at the start of last year. And at that price point, it'd be attractive to have him with all those options surrounding him. Gash, what do you think about the $6 to $7 million range?
Yeah, I am actually almost on the entirely opposite page of C4 in terms of Tammy. I think he is, based on the end of last season with Giroud's form, I think Tammy might actually be the third in the pecking order on the Chelsea attack in that striker spot. Especially because Giroud could play as like a hold-up man for like all these riggers and Timo making all these runs past him, and like you mentioned, like Havertz always making he's close to his Chelsea move now. As Fabrizio gave the here we go soon, I think today or yesterday. So really, like Tammy does not look like someone who, especially at that price point, that I'm going to be looking to bring in at all, unless there are an injury or two, or he just hits like hat trick every game for him, where Frank makes him, where he forces Frank to start him.
He was close to that. He was close to that at the beginning of last year. He was
he did have a couple of games in a row that he was scoring, and now I'm just imagining, if Tammy Abraham, no offense to him, can do that with the Chelsea attack at the start of last season, and now they're bringing in Havertz, and Pulisic is really hitting form, coming back from his injury, Ziyech too. I think that just adds to even more, like what Chelsea can be seen doing forward. The other striker I'd want to mention in this range is definitely Mitrovic. I think he's a really strong option. He has Premier League experience from a few years back. And one of the key things that jumped out at me was that he contributed 50% of Fulham's goals, contributed to 50% of Fulham's goals last season. So goals or assists. And he's also on penalties for Fulham as well, as long as nothing changes from last season. So I think he might be, I'm not saying Fulham is necessarily going to do super well as a team, but if Fulham is scoring, there's a really good chance that Mitrovic is involved.
Yeah. Taz, what you thinking, man?
Yeah, man. Start off before fixtures came out, I thought Antonio was the best option for coming off hot last season. But looking at West Ham's fixture start of the season, he'll definitely not be in my team. Maybe I'll consider him later on, but when the West Ham have like a favorable run of fixtures, but for right now, it's just it's too hard to go with him. Maupay from Brian is also pretty somebody I considered. He has a pretty terrible 10% goal conversion rate, but if he can improve upon that this season, I believe that last season was his first season in Premier League, so maybe had the jitters. If he can improve on that, it's somebody to consider for a budget option. He gets the last season he had like 21 towards the end of the last season post restart had 21 bonus points. So it's kind of like Brian score a goal. He's most likely scoring and or getting the bonus points for it. And he's kind of their go-to guy. Another person, Shea Adams, offers a cheap alternative to Ings if you don't want to splurge on Ings from the Southampton side. How we mentioned before a couple times, finish the season hot and are also have a favorable run of fixtures. But I'm going with Gash. Mitrovic is the best option. You know, he's the second owned striker for a reason in fantasy Premier League right now with 30% ownership. You know, Fulham have like their 6 of their first 9 matches have only a 2 fixture difficulty rating. So it's kind of like, he's guaranteed to score some goals there. And also, you know, he has proven himself in the Premier League to a certain extent. In the 2018-2019 season, he did score 11 goals and 3 assists, which is like what most of these, you know, 6 to like 7 million range forwards end up scoring throughout the season anyway. So, you know, it's very hard, not to start off the season with Mitrovic. I think he's the best option. I would not consider either Tammy Abraham. He's definitely third at best on the pecking order at Chelsea. And Richarlison for $8 million, it's kind of like he's not good enough to be the 8.5 with Ings and Jimenez. But, you know, Everton are too good of a team to be compared to like, West Ham, Fulham, or some of these other teams. So he just, for $8 million, I'd rather risk him more on a cheaper and then use that one. That $1.5 million or $1 million is the difference, or even $2 million is the difference between owning, Greenwood or Rashford at some cases. So
yeah, Richarlison didn't make any sense to me at that price point for this year.
I'm a little offended.
Why?
I think personally, I think you guys are looking at it the wrong way of, he's like $1 million more than a 6.0 option, and like that could cost you
$2 million more.
But
than 6.0 option. Yeah.
Let me get to my point. But he's also like he's also like $1 million less than like $500,000 less, $1 million less than that 8 to 9.5 bracket, which I think he could easily perform in over periods of good fixtures. Who knows? Maybe like, do you guys think it's viable to have a premium, then an 8, then a 6 for the entire season with Richarlison at that 8 instead of, I don't know, some people are putting in 2 6s, some people are still not going with a premium striker.
Well, the whole idea of having a premium striker is that it doesn't matter for fixtures. You expect your Hurricanes, even when Spurs are playing, a top team, you expect them to kind of score at least. So the whole idea is that fixtures don't really matter as much to your premium assets. It's only of like for captaincy in terms of premium. And then for your budget options, for example, Mitrovic right now, starting off the season, really good fixtures. He's going to have to, run into the tough fixtures later on in the season. He's going to have to, his team is going to have to play those top 6 teams. And therefore, that's when you want to transfer in, the Michael Antonios who played those tough fixtures and possibly going to probably have a easy lineup of like several game weeks. So, your premium assets are the ones that you don't really rotate. And then your budget ones are the ones you rotate for a certain extent. So would you really want to have somewhat a borderline premium asset that you're going to have to rotate? Because who's confident in Everton?
I'm not.
Sorry, my screen froze for 30 seconds of that. So I'm just waiting to pretend you're right and that Richarlison's a bad option. Then when I have him in my team and I'm thinking like starting game week 2, then we have a different conversation.